God, we thank you for allowing us to assemble today. We thank you for those who are faithful. We thank you for the spirits that desire to learn. We thank you for bringing us here no matter what has gone on during the week. And we ask that you continue to open our hearts and open our minds as we stretch what it means to be the church and how we are the church in a virtual community. In Jesus' name, pray and ask these things. Amen. 22. All right. So we ended with Paul getting arrested at the temple, and the tribune saying, "Well, are you Greek?" or "Who are you? What are you?" And so 22 opens with Paul addressing the Jewish crowd, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll read 1 through 5, and if someone could read 6 through 16, that'd be great. Or someone could read 1 through 5, and I'll read 6 through 16. I don't catch nobody off guard this time.
Men, brothers, and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make now to you. And when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silence. And he said, I am verily a man which am a Jew, born in Taurus, a city, Sicily, yet brought up in the city of the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward God, as ye all are this day. And I persecuted this way unto death, binding and delivering into prison both men and women, as also the high priest that bare me witness, and all the estate of the elders, from whom also I received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring them which were there bound unto Jerusalem for to be punished. And it came to pass that as I made my journey and was come nigh unto Damascus, about noon, suddenly there shone from heaven a great light around about me.
Okay, stop right there. So what we have going on here is what? What's happening?
A testimony.
We ain't got there yet, have we?
Well, Paul's telling what happened. I mean, he's proceeding to tell what's happening. Mm-hmm. He's coming to that point of what's happening in his life.
He's telling who he is and how he got there.
Yeah, who he is and how he got there, yes. Yeah.
No, not there.
Now, 7 through 16, someone. Okay, thank
If I got the big word there.
you.
He says, I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? I answered, Who are you, Lord? He said to me, I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting. Now those who were with me saw the light, but they did not hear the voice of the one who was speaking to me. Then I said, What should I do, Lord? And the Lord told me, Get up and go into Damascus, and there you will be told about everything that is assigned for you to do. How far is this?
Through 16.
Okay. Since I couldn't see because of the brightness of that light, I was led by the hand of those who were with me, and came into Damascus, someone named Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good reputation with all the Jews residing there, came to me, stood by me, and said, Brother Saul, regain your sight. And in that very hour I looked up and saw him. Then he said, The God of our fathers has appointed you to know his will, to see the righteous one, and to hear the sound of his voice. For you will be a witness for him to all people of what you have seen and heard. And now, why delay? Get up and be baptized, and wash away your sins by calling on his name.
17 through 21, please.
When I returned to Jerusalem, I was praying in the temple and fell into a trance. I saw a vision of Jesus saying to me, Hurry, leave Jerusalem, For the people here won't accept your testimony about me. But Lord, I argued, why certainly know that in every synagogue I imprisoned and beat those who believe in you. And I was in complete agreement when you witnessed Stephen was killed. I stood by and kept the coats they took off when they stoned him. But the Lord said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. The crowd listened until Paul said that word. Then they all began to shout, away with such a fellow. He isn't fit to live. They yelled, threw off their coats, and tossed handfuls of dust into the air.
That was actually through 23.
Oh, okay.
I'll pick up.
The command.
That's okay. I'll pick up. I really wanted you to stop at 21, but I'll go through 24.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
tribune directed that he was to be brought into the barracks and ordered him to be examined by flogging to find out the reason for his outcry against him. But when they had tied him up with thongs, Paul said to the centurion who was standing by, is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who is uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went to the tribune and said to him, what are you about to do? This man is a Roman citizen. The tribune came and asked Paul, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? And he said, yes. The tribune answered, it cost me a large sum of money to get my citizenship. Paul said, but I was born a citizen. Immediately, those who were about to examine him drew back from him, and the tribune was also afraid, for he realized that Paul was a Roman citizen and that he had bound him. So what we have here, we have Paul opening with the address to the Jewish crowd in Jerusalem, right? He's speaking in Hebrew because he knows his crowd and he knows that the crowd will respond to him speaking in Hebrew. So in verses 3 through 16, we have Paul speaking of his conversion story, how and where he was, raised, so that he could identify, which we will find out later on, with Pharisaic teaching. Okay? Paul was a Pharisee. Then in verses 17 through 21, Paul is in the temple praying. We got that. And Jesus is telling him to leave because the Jews won't believe his conversion testimony. They won't believe it. So then in verses 22 through 29, Paul is bound, and then they find out that he's a Roman citizen. Now that's not the first time Paul has used his citizenship. Y'all notice that? To get out of some sticky wickets. That's right.
Mhm.
And once the centurion realized Paul was a Roman citizen, he wanted to know what the issue was, because we all know that it's illegal, right? And then it ends with Paul going before the council in Rome.
Well, he sure does use his different citizenships when it's to his advantage. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
First I'm a Jew that come out, and then I'm talk this language to you, and then I'm gonna go over there and talk to you. Now I'm all of a sudden she's gonna put me up in there, back me up in this barracks. Now I'm a Roman. Boy, I use all kinds of citizenship when I need them.
Well, he's the perfect candidate, right? He's a hodgepodge of just about everything, ain't he?
That's why he's smart. He uses his advantage.
So my questions are, why is Paul retelling his conversion story in chapter 22? And why is Paul's citizenship important?
His citizenship is important because of where he is.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's Roman, he won't be persecuted. Because he wants to know why the Jewish don't like him if he's a Roman citizen. Then the commander's not going to do too much against him because he is a Roman citizen. He just wants to know why the Jewish don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why he's telling his story to the people of the crowd. Maybe he's trying to get them on his side. I don't know. Or maybe he's trying to get them to say, look, I know what I'm talking about because this is what happened to me. I don't know.
I roll with that. Glory, what do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds alright.
Okay.
That's how I say shit. Won't talk to you.
Granddaddy, what do you think? Why Paul is retelling his conversion story here and making it clear about how he used to persecute Christians?
Well, this is a personal testimony, and Paul wants to know that he was on the opposite side before, since he had seen the light and he went to Ananias,
Mm-hmm.
he made a complete change.
Mhm.
So he wants them to know that he's a different Paul than what he was in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
As I was reading through this, I don't know that we haven't gotten to 23, but
Well, then let's don't go there.
You can put a pin.
Put a
Wait
Put a pin in
Put
it.
a pin in it.
Put a
Wait till
pin
we get
in
there.
You was doubling up like that.
Could it, cause I just thought about it. Could it be what it said when I was reading 7 through 11? Could it be he's witnessing like Ananias told him that God said you're gonna be a witness, and that's what he's trying to do. He's witnessing. He's telling his story. He's doing exactly what Ananias said that he was supposed to be doing. That's why Ananias told him go be baptized. So God said you're gonna be a witness.
I think
Could it be one of those?
I think
I'm just an answer. I don't know.
I
Y'all
like
remember
what
reading
it is, yeah.
I remember reading that.
What
That's
do you
what-
think?
When he said that's what came to me. Oh. Well,
Well,
Gloria, come on.
What Lauren said.
I think Laura is right. Well, no.
I'm sorry. So that,
Well, I think he's telling his story again because he's using it to his behalf.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking his way down the street going, look, I'm not so different from you all because beforehand, before I started this is who I was and this is what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can identify with you. Now I'm over here, because of this incident here, and I can identify with them. So he's kind of walking, he's walking in both places.
Mm-hmm.
He can identify with the Romans and those people that want to crucify the Jews and not like the Jews and all of that. But then he can also relate to the Jews because he's had a conversion experience. So I think that's part of the reason. And it gives him an opportunity to wiggle his way out of some trouble.
Paul, he can win.
Yeah, he's a maneuver, right?
Gloria, will you read the end of 22, starting at verse 30, and continue through 23, verse 7?
The next day, because he wanted to know for certain why he was accused by the Jews, he released him from his bond
Mm-hmm.
and commanded the chief priests and all their councils to appear and brought Paul down and set him before them. Then Paul looked honestly at the council, saying, Men and brethren, I have lived all in good consequences before God until this day. And the high priest Ananias commanded those who stood by him to strike him on the lips.
Get that.
I don't get that either.
Well, keep going.
Yeah.
Then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed walls.
Mm-hmm.
For you said to the judge, to judge me according to the laws, and do you command me to be struck according to the contrary to the laws?
Mm-hmm.
And those who stood by said, do you reveal God's high priest? Then Paul said, I do not know, brothers, that he was the high priest, for it is written, you should not speak evil of a ruler of your people.
Mm-hmm. Will someone pick up 8 through 11, and then we'll circle back.
8.
Mm-hmm. Verse 8 through verse 11 only.
But the Sadducees said there is no resurrection, neither angels nor spirits. But the Pharisees confessed both. And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees part rose and strove, saying, we find no evil in this man, but if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against God. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him by force from among them, and to bring him into the castle. And the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, Be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome.
All
Okay.
right there. So let's go. So what's going on? We've had one council. We've had another council. What's going on? I mean, it's the same, but what's happening here?
Well, he's gone before this Ananias, the high priest, but I was wondering what the relationship between Ananias and this Ananias that he went to after he was struck down. Was this a common name? It might not be significant, but I was wondering if there was any relationship. Of course, what we're talking about now is that Paul's before the council and trying to defend what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
See that the Sadducees say there is no resurrection, and of course they were always opposite of the Pharisees, because the Pharisees believed in the resurrection. So you got conflicts all around.
Mm-hmm. So we have Paul in front of a Jewish audience, Paul in front of a Roman audience. What else is going on here? There was a question about the lips,
How are you?
right? What is that? Verse 2. So while Paul was verse 1, while Paul was looking intently at the council, he said, "Brothers, up to this point, I have lived my life with a clear conscience before God." That's kind of cheeky, isn't it? Then the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near him to strike him on the mouth. So, while Paul was looking intently at the council, he said, "Brothers, up to this day, I have lived my life with a clear conscience before God." And then Ananias, the high priest Ananias, ordered those standing near him to strike him in the mouth. You know, when I was a child and I spoke out of turn, my mama would pop me in my mouth. Right? Or if I lied, shut up. Now, in a non-abusive way. Now,
Thank you very much.
has Paul, now let's think about this logically. Paul is addressing this council saying, "Brothers, up to this day I have lived my life with a clear conscience before God." That is a bold-faced lie.
Well, how do you know? He could have had a clear conscience with all the killing that he was doing.
Well, and so hence Ananias told the people standing next to him to pop Paul in the mouth. Now
Right.
you shut your mouth. You know good daggone well
That ain't right.
that you used to kill
Because-
all these people
Because,
out here.
like your dad said, is that the same Ananias
It's
when he
the
went
same
into
one.
Damascus and found him, and Ananias knew who he was and told him to repent and seek
We get that come full circle here.
Yeah, it's the same man tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's what he
think
said.
I think what it's saying here, what Paul did before when he was persecuting all these people, he did that with a clear conscience. That was the right thing. I think that was what he's really saying. That was the right thing to do.
And that's still wrong.
But right.
It's still wrong, yeah.
That's why Ananias popped him in the mouth.
Like, huh, you know good and well.
No, I think Paul was trying to, as you say, Paul was trying to get over, so he was saying, "Hey,"
Right.
Hey guys, look, listen.
and I think he was trying to be slick about it
I
when he tried to do it.
Right, I
But he
sleep
said,
well at night.
Time here. Yeah.
Right.
In other words, he said, "Y'all don't know me, but let me tell y'all a story."
See, but here's the thing: it's very
The only person that knew was Ananias. That's why Ananias said, "No, here, go tell them stories
Get
over
that- get that pop, right?
there. Tell them
It's
stories over there."
It's very difficult to pretend to be someone else when you're in the company of those that know you, right? So that was the question about the lips. Was there another question?
My question was,
Mhm.
why are the Sadducees I call it the high court, Saturday.
Oh, the Sanhedrin?
The
I call it the
Sanhedrin.
high court.
Uh-huh.
I said, why did the Sadducees on the high court, why are they on the high court if they didn't believe? And the Pharisees did while they're together. Then I says, why do they get to tell the Jews how to live? Because, they're on their high court, because they tell the Jews, what they done wrong, and maybe you're going to be flogged so many times for something you did that you ain't got a business. Because you got to come before me anyway. Most of them do. Most of the Jews come before me anyway. And then the other one says, if they don't believe, then says, what are the Sadducees a part of the Sanhedrin or the high court if they don't believe? Why are they a part of it if they don't believe?
Oh, then there's no requirement that you have to believe in the resurrection. Or actually,
Well, I'm
not
not.
all three.
I'm through this. I thought the Sanhedrin
The
court, I
Sanhedrin?
call it high court, sorry. But I always thought the high court was comprised of people that all believed maybe in the same way.
No.
Because, you always had to come before them. You always had to come before the court or the elders
Mm-mm.
or the people who was of the chapter.
They were all the Jewish people.
Right, so I always figured they all believed.
Mm-mm. No.
And that's why I was wondering why they had two different separate people sitting in this courtroom.
No.
Because if I'm a Sadducee, does this mean the Pharisees over here gonna
That's
condemn
right.
me?
Sure.
If we got 6 people on this court, on this high court, let's say in this court,
Yep.
and I do something, and I'm a Sadducee, does this mean that the Pharisees over here gonna condemn me? So that means with a 6 and 6.
The high
So how you gonna get anywhere?
the high court is like the Supreme Court.
Just like now.
You understand what I'm saying?
People
I always thought they were
on
mutually
the jury.
agreeable
You're on the jury,
within
but
the same,
they all
or believing the same thing.
Mm-mm.
might think differently.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, just like in your committees,
Yeah.
right?
In the committees that you all work with
Well,
in churches, same thing.
Now,
Same
'cause
thing.
they supposed to.
That's what you say.
They all supposed to believe it. They don't believe it.
Well,
But
no,
when they come together, they all supposed to believe in the same thing, really. But
no.
that's what I was always thinking when the high court came together and the priests or the elders or whoever they were, they all came together.
Elders.
Well, I mean, sometimes some say elders, some of them.
No, they were elders.
Yeah, some of them said the elders. That's what I said. And my understanding was they always agreed
Be of the same mind.
of the same man.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
But they're not.
And all elders are not priests.
Mm-mm.
Clarence
Okay.
Thomas doesn't believe.
But I mean, when the high court came
I know. I just wanted you to know that they're not all priests, all the elders.
So I just was thinking.
Look, Granddad's trying to bring in Claire Thomas.
I said,
Moving on.
Clarence Thomas doesn't believe everything that the other jurors believe.
Clarence
No, on the
Thomas, the Black
Supreme
Supreme Court. Yeah.
Supreme Court.
Now let's keep it. But no, they.
Because she did sleep with that little black woman. Could be Joseph.
Oh Lord. Moving on. We're gonna keep moving on.
I know he did. He just don't want his wife to know.
12 through.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Anyway,
22.
come on. Okay, 12 through 22.
In the morning, we all at verse 12?
Yeah.
In the morning, the Jews joined in a conspiracy and bound themselves by an oath neither to eat nor drink until they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 who joined this conspiracy. They went to the chief priests and elders and said, "We have strictly bound ourselves by an oath to taste no food until we have killed Paul. Now then, you and the council must notify the tribune to bring him down to you on the pretext that you want to make a more thorough examination of his case. And when we are ready to do away with him, before he arrives." Now the son of Paul's sister heard about the ambush, so he went and gained entrance to the barracks and told Paul. Paul called one of the centurions and said, "Take this young man to the tribune, for he has something to report to him." So he took him, brought him to the tribune, and said, "The prisoner Paul called me and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to tell you." The tribune took him by the hand, drew him aside privately, and asked, "What is it that you have to report to me?" And he answered, "The Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more thoroughly into his case. But do not be persuaded by them, for more than 40 of their men are lying in ambush for him. They have bound themselves by an oath neither to eat nor drink until they kill him. They are ready now and are waiting for your consent." So the tribune dismissed the young man, ordering him, "Tell no one you have informed me of this." Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
tribune. Is that a group of people? Because mine just says commander. Like one
No,
person.
in this case, it's just one guy.
Yeah, because mine just says
Mhm.
commander, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking trying to.
It's just a position. Yeah.
23 through.
They told the tale. They just as bad as Paul.
Who told the tale?
The chief priest and the elder, well, the 40 Jews, they just as bad as Paul because the chief priest and the elders are going along with the 40 people. They just as bad as Paul trying to get out of stuff because they said, well, slide him on down here and you tell him this story. We're going to get him when he gets in here. And they going along with
No argument there.
it.
23 through 35, please.
The commander called 2 of his officers and ordered, "Get 200 soldiers ready to leave for Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight. Also take 200 spearmen and 7 mounted troops. Provide horses for Paul to ride, and get him safely to Governor Felix." Then he wrote this letter to the governor. From Claudius, to His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by some Jews and were about to kill him when I arrived with the troops. When I learned that he was a Roman citizen, I removed him to safety. Then I took him to their high council to try to learn the basis of the accusations against him. I soon discovered the charges were something regarding their religious law, certainly nothing worthy of imprisonment or death. But when I was informed of a plot to kill him, I immediately sent him on to you. I have told his accuser to bring their charges before you. So that night, as ordered, the soldier took Paul as far as Antipatris. They returned to the fortress the next morning, while the mounted troops took him on to Caesarea. When they arrived there, they presented Paul and the letter to the governor Felix. He read it and then asked Paul what province he was from. "Cilicia," Paul answered. "I will hear your case myself when your accusers arrive," the governor told him. Then the governor ordered him be kept in the prison at Herod's headquarters.
All right. So here's what we got going on in 23. Verses 1 through 11, Paul makes his case before the Roman council. That you have in verse 6 and 7, Paul was very aware that there were theological differences between the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Been there forever, right? So this was a very calculated and strategic move. We've never accused Paul of being a dummy. And it caused a dissension between the two groups, which was another way that Paul weaseled his way out, right? Again, Paul's citizenship is an issue here. They find out that he's a Roman citizen, and arrangements were made to help him flee from imprisonment and or execution, and we're left with Paul exiting to Caesarea, okay? That's what we have going on in 23, just to sum that up. So, my question, do you find any parallels between Paul's story and another key New Testament figure? Do you feel like the stories are repeating in some way? Why? But the first question, do you find any parallels between Paul's story up to this point and any other key New Testament figures?
It's the same story of Jesus.
How so?
3 court appearances. Jesus had 3 court appearances before they actually let him, before they actually flogged him and took him to the cross. Paul has got 3 court appearances.
Well, we're about to get into the next one.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. What else, if anything else? Do you all see that? Or is it shaky? Or, what do you think, Gloria? Nothing?
Can you relate to the 3, to the both of them having 3 court appearances? Okay.
What you got going on stewing in your head?
Something, because you can tell it's still looking at my eyes right
Uh-huh. Eyes just going this way, that
now. I
way,
know.
up this way.
I'm just listening because Paul think he's slick and the other two people think they slick too. So my thinking is they want Paul shut up, just like they tried to shut Jesus up.
That's right.
That's
was
a
my
parallel.
thought,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want Paul shut up, just like they tried to get Jesus shut up.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's a parallel. High five. What do you got going over there, Granddaddy? I see your eyebrows are raised.
See?
But
I say what Lauren said.
same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's found in where there's no more than death.
Now, what we talked about this last week, right? And we talked, about the humanity of Paul and how we don't ever really get to witness that. Like that was the only little snippet of any sort of human. I don't want to say human emotion, but a non-martyr presence that Paul has. Everything else is anything I do it for Jesus, and I die, I suffer, I did, a very martyr type mentality. But last week we discovered a different side of Paul, that pain, that humanity. And so I wonder if you find any sort of parallel between that side of him with what he's going through, getting ready, he's walking his metaphorical road to destruction, right? And we have a same parallel with another key New Testament figure showing that humanity as they walk their road to their demise. Well, I can't say demise because it really was, but death, right? And we've been building up to this thing, right? We've had parallels between, well, you can't really prophesy to Jesus that he's going to die because Jesus already knows these things, but we have someone prophesying to Paul saying, hey, I know that you're going to die and this is what's going to happen. And then you have Jesus also talking to Paul. So you know how I always talk about Paul having this Jesus this Jesus syndrome. But the way Luke writes Acts, there are strong parallels between Jesus' ministry and Paul's ministry. Would you agree or disagree? I said a lot. I know I did. I'm sorry.
Somewhat.
Somewhat?
Some things. When Paul gets ready to go to Jerusalem, he knows something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
He knows something's gonna happen. But when you see the human side, I think he's trying to say he didn't really want to go. He
Mm-hmm.
was gonna go on anyway, but he didn't want to go. When I say somewhat, on the other hand, Jesus didn't seem like he didn't want to go. Jesus went on anyway because he knew he was about his Father's business. And it didn't seem like he told, when he was talking to the disciples, it didn't seem like he said, I tarry here because I don't want to go. But in Paul's letter, it seemed like he didn't really want to go because he wasn't ready. But it didn't seem like, that's all when I say somewhat. That's the way I think it's somewhat.
Well, Jesus,
That's what I mean when I say somewhat.
Jesus said, Jesus. I'm not.
Let this
I'm
cup
not.
pass
I'm
from
not disagreeing with what you said. But Jesus said, "It's not my will, but Thy will be done." So actually, he didn't want to drink that bitter cup,
Right,
but he did it for his Father.
But he didn't so like give you a letter saying, I know this, and
No,
I got to go in. Like Paul was trying. In other words, Paul was trying to make me feel sorry for him. In a kind of way, he was talking about, he was like, in a kind of way, I know I gotta go to Jerusalem because this is the way it's gonna go if it's God's will, because people kept trying to talk him out of it. But did you see anybody try to talk Jesus out of it?
Yeah.
Who?
His disciples did not want him to go to the cross. But here we go. We had, ladies and gentlemen.
But they were selfish to me. They didn't want him to go across because they wasn't ready for him to go because they still wanted to hear the rest of the story. That's my opinion.
At the table, we have a
Story, but
Pharisee
you know what I mean.
and a
The rest of what he
Sadducee
had to tell them.
in one corner.
They wanted to hear what the rest of what he had to tell. I didn't mean story, but you know what I mean.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
And okay.
that's why I say something. But Paul is, but me and Paul don't like each other. So hey, what can I say?
That's all right. Y'all don't have to like each other. It's your take on it is very interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. Gloria, what do you think?
You do that talk.
What do you think about the comparison between Jesus and Paul?
Yeah.
Was Paul's going by what? To me, Paul's going by his faith that he's found that he gets from God, and he's going by, going down that road. As he going down the road, he has protection. He knows he's got protection, and he's going on to do what he was aiming to do.
So there's a confidence there. Yeah. Interesting. I would say that there are some very strong similarities. A little too strong for my taste, but that's me inserting my own position. But there are some very strong similarities, and they get even stronger as the stories continue. 24, verse 24. Any other things from 23? All right, 24. If someone will read 1 through 9.
And after 5 days, Ananias the high priest descended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullius, and informed the governor against Paul. And when he called forth, Tertullius began to accuse him, saying, "Seeing that by thee we enjoy great whiteness, and that very worthy deed are done unto this nation by thy providence. We accept always in all places the most noble Felix with all thankfulness, notwithstanding that I be not farther tedious unto thee. I pray thee that thou wouldest hear us and thy clemency a few words. For we have found this man a pestilent felon, and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sects of the Nazarene." A lot of these churches get their names from these things that's called in the Bible. Who also has gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain, Lysidas, came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding this accuser to come unto thee, thou examine who thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things where we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. Then Paul, after
No. Verse 9. Stop right there.
Mhm.
So we have a build-up, right? A continuation of what's been going on
Mhm.
in the past previous two chapters.
Mhm.
So Felix is now hearing the case that has been brought before Paul, right? In verses 1 through 9. Will someone read 10 through 23, please? Okay, thank you.
When the governor motioned for him to speak, Paul replied,
Mm-hmm.
"Because I know you have been a judge of this nation for many years, I am glad to offer my defense in what concerns me. You are able to determine that it is no more than 12 days since I went up to worship in Jerusalem, and they didn't find me disputing with anyone or causing a disturbance among the crowd, either in the temple complex or in the synagogue, or anywhere in the city. Neither can they provide evidence to you of what they now bring against me. But I confess this that according to the way, which they call a sect, I worship my father's God, believing all the things that are written in the law and in the prophets. And I have a hope in God, which these men themselves also accept, that there is going to be a resurrection, both for the righteous and the unrighteous. I always do my best to have a clear conscience toward God and men. After many years, I came to bring charitable gifts and offerings to my nation. And while I was doing this, some Jews from the province of Asia found me ritually purified in the temple. without a crowd and without any uproar.
Mhm.
It is they who ought to be here before you to bring charges. If they have anything against me, either let these men here state what wrongdoing they found in me when I stood before the Sanhedrin.
Mhm.
For about this one statement I cried out while standing among them. Today I am being judged before you concerning the resurrection of the dead.
Mhm.
He did.
He is.
He's clearing his conscience.
Okay.
Now notice here, verse 17, it says, now after, excuse me, that's a totally different point I'm going to make. Skip up to verse 16. Therefore, I do my best to always have a clear conscience toward God and all people. Now that's a different tune. We've gone to the pop rock station. He was singing R&B in chapter 23, right? Before he got
Right.
Yeah.
before he got popped in the mouth. He learned his lesson. So what's going on here? Paul has brought in another dynamic, hasn't he? He has a bit more. Well, I don't want to influence what you think, but I see Paul having a different tone in this defense than he has in others. What do you all think? What do you think?
He's gone before Felix and he's telling Felix that he did nothing wrong. These men are accusing him of things that he didn't do, and he didn't bother anybody, and I didn't do anything. I just came to bring my gifts to my city. He said, and these men are accusing me of something I didn't. But the men who did see me, who thought I did something, let them come and bring charges before me. Where are they?
Mm-hmm.
The ones who say I am as they say, the bad person, or I've done what they said I've done in the city or in the sect or whatever. Where are they? Let them come and bring. Let them come and say what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
But as for the rest of them, I have done nothing wrong, and I have not stirred anybody. I just went to the temple to pray. In other words, I was minding my own business. I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's kind of pretty much what he's saying.
I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time.
What I'm talking about. What do you
So
think?
he's
Will?
Well, he can't control he can't control the other people, what they think about him.
Mm-hmm.
He just has to go and do the right thing. Yes. So he can't control them. But
No, he
he's
can't.
trying to do.
He's trying to do what?
He's trying to do what he's supposed to do, the right thing now, because he's clearing his conscience.
Now, is he doing the right thing for God, or is he doing the right thing for himself?
Save his butt.
Did nobody ask you, Lori? Himself. Okay. I can't disagree there. Granddaddy, you had something. I said put a pin in it. You had something. What is it gone?
No, I was just talking about that Ananias.
Oh, mm-hmm. What do you think?
One being the governor and then one being the just man that assisted Paul. I was just wondering if there was any relationship.
They're the same
Or just
person.
a common name, huh?
They're the same person. There's only one Ananias.
Well, I mean, I'm sure not.
I'm talking
this
about
story.
in the story. They're the
It
same,
was the same person.
Okay.
So what now? Paul brings in a new element, right? He has been, he has had his song on repeat, right?
Up until now.
Up until now. And then in verse 17, he brings in something that I find very interesting. Now, after some years, I came to bring alms to my nation and to offer sacrifices. Paul hasn't talked about that anywhere else. And it's my opinion.
He's changing his story. I'm telling you, he done been put.
Well, I don't necessarily believe he's changing his story.
He's just adding things to it.
He's changing his
The
story.
further he gets up the line,
Right, see?
the more stuff he adds to
Right.
it, because this is the first. Maybe he said it before, and I don't remember. But today he's laying claim to being on trial simply because he believes in the resurrection.
Right,
See?
right.
Yeah. That story.
So here's the thing. If I know Gloria likes Skittles, I'm not going to talk about M&M's. I'm going to talk about Skittles. If I know Granddaddy likes chocolate, I'm not going to talk about lemon heads. I'm going to talk about chocolate. if I know that Felix, the governor, has his hand out for some money and is a crook, what am I going to add in my story? Now look here, after some years, I came to bring alms to my nation and to offer sacrifice.
It's like when you get in trouble and your mama standing there looking at you. Well, you done told that story once, and then daddy come home. Well, you done added to that story because you really don't want to get in trouble. So you adding to this story, okay?
Paul has changed some things.
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah.
It's his story.
He
the
has
whole
changed.
story.
He has changed his tune based on
3
his
different times.
based on his audience.
Yeah.
He's had
Yeah,
3
yeah.
different audiences, right?
Mhm.
Now Jesus never
But he's
changed.
appealing to Felix though right now, though.
We shall
He
see.
really is.
Verse 22. But Felix, and I'll just close it on now.
Mhm.
But Felix, who was rather well informed about the way, is in my Bible. It's capitalized. The way is
Yes.
Jesus'
Yeah,
way.
Right.
Just in case anyone was okay. We all on the same page. So I'll start over. But Felix, who was rather well informed about the way, adjourned the hearing with the comment, when Lysias, the tribune, comes down, I will decide your case. Then he ordered the centurion to keep him in custody, but to let him have some liberty, and not to prevent any of his friends from taking care of his needs. 24. Some days later, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewish, he sent for Paul and heard him speak concerning faith in Christ Jesus. And as he discussed justice, self-control, and the coming judgment, Felix became frightened and said, "Go away for the present. When I have an opportunity, I will send for you." At the same time, he hoped that money would be given him by Paul, and for that reason, he used to send for him very often and converse with him. After 2 years had passed, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus. That's a name, ain't it?
Yep.
And since he wanted to grant the Jews a favor, Felix left Paul in prison. So talk to him.
Felix wanted a little money.
Sound like it.
Paul didn't give him none. Paul had to stay in prison.
But he wanted
That's
that
why
money.
Paul had to stay.
And he
Paul
said,
tried to please Felix. And it didn't
listen,
work.
and he said he wanted money,
Mm-hmm.
as that's why he called on Paul often,
Right.
Yeah, right.
right?
Right.
So 1 through 9, verses 1 through 9, we have the governor of Caesarea hearing the case that has been brought up against Paul, right? Verses 10 through 21, Paul is giving an eloquent response to the charges and allegations brought against him, and he has remixed his original song, right? And then we have 24 through 27, Paul being left in prison for 2 years. Yes, ma'am.
You know why Paul was left in prison?
Why that?
Because he told Felix that he was bringing money. He said, "I'm bringing alms to my nation," and Felix wanted that money. And Paul wouldn't give it up because that's not what Paul was going to do with it. No, I'm just saying it could go that way.
It could.
Because he says, the way yours says he got alms, mine just says he's bringing something to the nation, you know. But if Felix wants money and he thinks that Paul's got this money, because Paul said, "Look here, I was just bringing the money into the thing." And he said, "Oh, money?
You speaking my language.
Let's talk." Let's talk. So he figures if he keeps talking to him, then maybe he would give it up.
Yeah, he was hoping for a bribe.
Right.
So
So
that's
that's why he
kind of
kept bringing Paul out.
Mhm.
Hoping Paul would
Extortion?
just,
Yeah, he was hoping Paul would
Yeah.
give him a bribe.
give it up.
Yeah.
Because Paul said he had money for alms or whatever, whatever it was.
That's why he kept him in prison. And
And that's why he kept bringing them out.
Uh-huh.
Kept bringing them out, kept
and
talking
not
to
only
them.
that, but as long as Paul was in prison, all the Jews were in line. They were happy. They weren't.
it said. That's what it said. As a favor to the Jews.
Yeah, they weren't cutting up. They weren't doing what they normally do.
Now, do you see some sort of Pauline pattern here? Like, do you see Paul constructing some sort of pattern with all these different speeches or defenses of his innocence?
Let's see what
A lot of he got out of this one.
That's it,
whatever situation he was in, he had to answer for.
didn't he?
Yeah,
Paul was never snubbed, was he?
yeah.
Then you can go back and get and tell the whole story. Though.
He was well taught.
He got an answer for everything. right?
You're right. He was. You could
Well
tell he
taught.
was a very educated man.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and just very educated. And not necessarily books, but
Yeah.
in life.
And books.
Books too?
Well, I know he was, but books don't. Books are books, and they're good. But books can't teach you practical application. Paul had practical application, where he could walk in there and turn. He could flip a word.
Just like
So,
Gloria
yes.
was.
Speak
Yes.
their language.
That's
not
right.
Right.
Give them something they want to hear.
Right. That's
right.
right.
As you say, he had both book sense and street sense.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Very smart. Very smart.
He was a professional wiggler,
Yeah.
like what you were saying. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Now, in the grand scheme of things, so we're going to pick up with 25, 26, 27, 28, because it kind of see how fast we kind of went through all three? It's one big glob of a story. Do you think that the mission of the church was helped or hindered by the distance between believers? Just to think. Did we get to all your questions? Just a pause, and I put a pin in myself.
Man was because man was about to Sadducees, and if they didn't believe, man was about
Oh,
to
okay.
why they was all indifferent.
Now, what about what in these 3 chapters with Paul's constant clash with the council and the tribune and this, that, and the third? What, in other words, would proximity have made a difference with the believers? Like, everybody needs a crew. So, do you think that proximity made a difference in Paul's support group?
You mean where he was at?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And would you think Paul would have benefited from having people in his corner?
Yeah, I'm surprised he was trying along. Usually he has a little buddy with him. I'm surprised he was trying along.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have made him. That would have helped him. To me, helped him a little bit better. Cause maybe. But then he did get to see some of his buddies near the end when he let him, come and how they say, take care of him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's in prison now.
And I went in there, man, when you ever go get
I know, right? Now, Gloria, I have a question for you. Do you think the charges against Paul represent? Do the charges against Paul represent the early church? If so, how and why?
Do the charges against Paul represent the early church? Yeah, because the elders is charging him.
The elders, the Jews, everybody.
Everybody's charging him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah,
Why?
because I don't
Yes, you do.
know.
Yeah, you do.
You got all types of miraculous things floating around in that head. What's your gut say?
Why do you think they were charging him? If you don't mind me asking.
I don't.
Because their beliefs and his beliefs was 2 different beliefs, and he was going on down the different cities or towns or whatever, preaching this and that, and theirs was something else.
High five!
Do you think he was getting more people in numbers than they were? Do you think that could have been a problem?
Well, some of them that was believing what they was telling them, they followed him along, and they was believing what they started following him. So they took away from them.
Mhm.
So like maybe some jealousy,
Yeah.
right? Do you, everybody? I had to pick on Gloria since you've been so quiet.
Okay.
But to everybody, do you find similarities between Paul's struggle with the early church and our struggle with the church now? As the baby cries from behind the door. Right, that was his answer. Do you find similarities with Paul's struggle in the early church with our struggles with the church today?
Mama, did you want to answer?
No, I talked all night long.
Yeah, there are similarities there. The our battle, a lot of it comes denominationally lined up. Paul's battle came, it wasn't denominationally lined up, but it was lined up based on I believe this and I believe that. Theologically, okay? And so today, even though, and we still have those theological issues, the same ones that he was fighting with then, we are still addressing now. Was the resurrection real? Was it not real? You know, was Jesus who Jesus says he was? Was Jesus not? You know, and everybody's going back and forth trying to decide on where they stand on that line. So I can see the similarities that Paul of the early church and today. Actually, I think we are further along in the battle. We're further along in understanding, but we're no closer to a resolution than they were back then. But we are further along in the battle.
Kind of like the smarter we get, the dumber we get.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Is that why we doing the Thessalonians after this? First Thessalonians after this, the early church.
She's in my brain. She's in my brain. Yes. That is why.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any similarities in the church in that?
Mm-hmm.
See, she sees similarities.
That's why we're going to 1 Thessalonians after this.
Your mother said we was going to go Romans.
No.
She said
First
no.
Thessalonians.
No, I said I always like to do Romans. It's my favorite book. Yeah.
She's a Romans fan. Now, up to this point, you know, we've been talking about Paul. We've been exhausted on Paul. We're going to keep being exhausted about Paul. But up to this point in Acts, with this story as a whole, has your opinion or definition of what it means to be the church changed or evolved in any way? Or do you still believe the same? Which, it's cool if you do. I'm just asking. Uh-oh. You look like you had something. It's still in there.
Well, then Paul, he hasn't really. I don't feel sorry for him. He hasn't really convinced me. I mean, he could have convinced me to go, you know, when I'm listening to him, witnessing and stuff. But he hasn't convinced me that to actually just put everything and just walk away.
What do you mean? Oh, like to go follow him
Yes.
while he.
If I was
Okay.
back in the times, he really hadn't convinced me yet. I'm still listening. You say I'm the one that's standing back watching. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as she said, I could be teetering.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like the way the Jews don't like Paul because Paul's come in with something new and they don't like something new. They don't want it to change. They want to stay where they are. Okay, I'm up for the change, but he hasn't really convinced me quite yet that I need to go follow him. I'll listen, but I haven't really crossed over that.
The divide.
I wouldn't do the meanness, you know, the violence to him, but you know.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So has that changed or kept the same? Your opinion or definition of what it means to be the church, or what it means to just be church?
You know, as you're getting into Paul, he some of his things not as dry as I thought he was at first, but he get a little bit better. He ain't got that much better, but he get a little bit better.
Oh, well, we'll take it. Little by little, we'll take it.
He ain't got that much, but he get a little bit better. He
What
ain't
do
dry.
you think, Gloria?
I think it's getting where we are seeing where we, as the elders and the people, we are the church. We are the church.
Hey now. 2-step on that. What do you think, Granddaddy?
The same. We are the church.
There you go.
We are the church. What we call the church is just a building. But you are the church. The church, the building is the edifice that we go into. The way it's decorated, that's not going to get you into heaven. But what's in you, the church, is what gets you gets you in salvation. You can go to that building from now on and not be church. just like that man that went down and held up First Baptist.
Well, we're going to continue on with this and we're going to pray out.
In Paul's early church, he's convincing everyone to go. He's witnessing. He don't have a book like he's got.
Right.
And he's convincing everyone to go. And in his early church, isn't he convincing everyone to, as Brother Lester say, or to this is what you need to do, and you need to love everybody. Everybody needs to come together. And we need to take care of each other.